Welcome to Reformed Thinking. Today, we're jumping into a command from Jesus that pretty much goes against everything our culture tells us. We're talking about the call to self-denial. Now, I know it can sound harsh, maybe even a little backwards, but the Bible actually presents it as the absolute starting point for anyone who truly wants to follow Christ. So let's get into what that really means.
Just look at the world around us. We are soaked in messages about lifting up the self. It's all about follow your dreams, believe in yourself, and of course, you do you. But then you open up your Bible to Luke chapter 9, and the contrast is just, well, it's jarring. Jesus doesn't call us to find ourselves, he calls us to deny ourselves. The command couldn't be clearer. Deny yourself, take up your cross daily, and follow him.
And right away, Jesus raises the stakes. This question from Matthew 16 makes you stop and think about what actually lasts forever. I mean, you could gain everything this world offers, all the money, all the fame, all the power, but if you do it on your own terms, you risk losing the only thing that actually matters for eternity, your soul. It's a choice between what feels good for a moment and what is truly life itself. Okay, so before we can really build a solid definition of what self-denial is, we have to be super clear about what it is not. We've got to clear away some of the common misunderstandings and counterfeits that are out there. You know, when people hear the phrase self-denial, their minds often jump to these kinds of distortions. They picture someone who hates themselves, or they imagine a bunch of man-made joy-killing rules, or maybe they think it means becoming some kind of emotionless robot. But as we're about to see, biblical self-denial is something totally different. This really gets to the heart of it. Self-denial is not about hating the person God created you to be. It's about denying that sinful, rebellious part of us that wants to be its own boss. And it's definitely not about adding a bunch of extra biblical rules, something the Bible calls asceticism. In fact, Paul warns us in Colossians that those kinds of rules might look wise, but they have zero power to actually deal with sin. And this goes for our personalities too. God does not want to erase the unique person he made you to be. Not at all. He wants to redirect your gifts, your quirks, your whole personality for his purposes. So the question isn't, how do I get rid of myself? The question becomes, how can I use the person I am for the glory of God? And we also have to see that self-denial is not about becoming some emotionless stoic. I mean, the best example is Jesus himself. The very one who calls us to deny ourselves is the one who felt deep sorrow and openly wept at his friend's tomb. Following Christ doesn't mean you stop feeling things. It means you submit those feelings to his word and you turn away from destructive emotions like envy or self-pity. All right, so now that we've cleared away some of the rubble of what self-denial isn't, let's build up a positive, gospel-centered definition of what it actually is. Okay, here it is. This is a really solid, packed definition, so let's break it down a little. Notice first that it's a lifelong process. This isn't a one-and-done decision. Second, it's spirit-enabled, which means we're not doing this in our own strength. And here's the absolute key. It's all grounded in our union with Christ's death and resurrection. Theologians call this our union with Christ. And it's this idea that because we are connected to him, what happened to him is now true for us. That's the engine that makes the whole thing run, and it leads to a willing, even glad submission to him. It is so critical to see the difference between real self-denial and religious legalism. Legalism is all about trying to earn God's favor through what we do. And you know where that leads? It leads straight to pride. It's basically just a polished-up version of self-worship. But true self-denial, that flows from a place of gratitude for the grace we've already received. The result isn't pride at all, it's humility. And this verse, Galatians 2:20, gets to the absolute center of it all. For the Christian, that old self, the part of you that wants to be king, has been put to death with Christ on the cross. Its claim on you is broken. So self-denial is just living out that new reality, day by day, choosing to put Christ, not ourselves, at the center of our lives. So this can't just be some abstract idea we talk about. It has to actually work itself out in the nitty-gritty of our everyday lives. So let's look at 6 specific areas where this submission to Christ really plays out. You see, self-denial gets into every part of who we are. It starts right up here, in our minds, changing how we even think about what's true. From there, it moves down into our hearts, reordering our desires and what we love. It involves our bodies, bringing our physical appetites under Christ's authority, and then it moves outward to our money, our relationships, and even our biggest plans for the future. So what does this actually look like? Well, it looks like taking our thoughts captive to obey Christ instead of just letting them run wild. It's about having the courage to say no to desires that pull us outside of God's good boundaries. It looks like disciplining our bodies, not to punish them, but to offer them as tools for doing what's right. It means holding our money and our stuff with an open hand, ready for Christ to use. In our relationships, it's putting others first. And with our ambitions, it means submitting our plans to God and saying, "Your will be done."
Okay, but this all brings up a huge question. Why would anybody choose a path that sounds so hard? The answer is found in one of the great, beautiful paradoxes of the Christian faith. Jesus says this very path of losing your life is the only way you're ever going to truly find it.
This promise from Christ in Matthew 16 is everything. This isn't really about loss, it's a joyful exchange. Think about Jesus' parable of the man who finds a treasure buried in a field. He joyfully sells everything he has to buy that field because he knows the treasure is worth so much more. It's the same way with us. Giving up our life on our own terms is no real loss when what we gain is Christ himself. So, what's the motivation? What keeps us going on this path? Well, the highest motive is always God's glory. We want our lives to show how great He is. But that main motive is supported by a whole bunch of others: gratitude for His grace, the pursuit of that better treasure we have in Him, the desire to become more and more like Christ, and a genuine love for other people. So here's the bottom line. Self-denial isn't for some super spiritual elite class of Christians. It's the normal daily pattern for every single person who belongs to Jesus. It's the ongoing process of turning away from ruling our own lives to living under Christ's good rule, all made possible because He first gave Himself for us on the cross.
And all of this leaves us with a final, searching question that we have to ask ourselves. And it's a question that requires some real, gut-level honesty. Where in my life, in my thoughts, in my desires, in my plans, in my relationships, where is self still sitting on the throne, refusing to submit to the good and loving rule of King Jesus?